guys, Master Thinking here, bringing you another Dragon Ball Z Dokkan battle video. So, if you've clicked onto this video, I'm assuming that you've already seen the video that we're going to be reacting to, which is Truth's top 10 TURs. So, this is his list of the top 10 TURs in the game as of the start of the year 2022. He does clarify at the beginning, no EZA units, but of course, side banner units are included, which is... I think where some of the controversy came from. So the whole reason that this video exists is because lots of people had a lot of things to say about this tier list. And as always, a lot of people going crazy on Twitter, as they do whenever anyone posts a Dokkan opinion, let alone Truth. I mean, if there's one person who has an army of people constantly lined up to disagree with him whenever he says anything, it's our boy DATRUTHDT. So after some of the hilarious back and forth, posted this tweet, which, you know, typical Truth, just memeing around, pretty funny. Like, he did clarify in some of the replies, like, this is his genuine top 10, but I do agree, it is always funny to see people losing their minds over your opinion on a mobile game, so this is pretty funny. But basically, the whole reason that this came about is, as we go down here, we see this tweet from Joey, 664898484, who says, I need Goresh to make a video reacting to your Dokkan videos, kind of like how he did for Legends. And Truth was like, this is a great idea, I'm going to get him on it, this is the video. And then he showed a screenshot of their DMs where he sent it to Goresh, and Goresh just said, I am not touching that tier list video. So pretty funny response. So of course I said, LMAO, you gotta love the homie for his honesty. Like, I'm not surprised, considering how controversial the list is, that some people just wouldn't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole. And then Truth replied saying, he's a snake, how about you do it? So, I did say I had some opinions, but I don't play JP. So, for me personally, you guys have heard me talk about this before, whenever I've done, like, tier lists, or when people have asked me questions about specific units, and, you know, who I think is better and all that sort of stuff. I don't like to make, like, a concrete opinion on a unit that I've never used. And I mean, literally just like the backlash to this tier list is a perfect example, right? Because people will be immediately jumping on any opinion that you put out there. So I like to make sure I at least have something to back it up. Like, obviously, you can watch videos of people on JP using units that are on JP, but for me personally, there's been a lot of times where units have come out and I've completely changed my opinion on them just by using them myself, trying them out on a bunch of different teams, taking them into a bunch of different events and stuff like that. So, you know, I don't like to say, like, oh, this unit is better than this unit when I haven't used one or both of them. But I thought it'd be pretty funny. I put out a tweet basically saying I usually stay away from rating JP units, but would you guys like to see this? I mentioned it in a video that I put up as well, and a bunch of people said that they would like to see it, so yeah, here we are, and this is going to be the video. So I'm not going to do, like, it's not going to be like a reaction video in the sense where I watch his entire video and keep talking and adding comments, because his video is already like 20 odd minutes long, so this video, or 30 odd minutes long, so this video would end up being like 50 or more. I'm just going to talk about some of the major points, the placements on the list, and what I think about them, whether I agree or disagree, because, you know, Truth said even right at the beginning that this list was very difficult for him to put together. Other lists, he has a very clear idea in his mind very easily of, like, which units are better than others and which ones, like, where they should be in the top 10. But this one is a little bit more difficult. And he does talk about, like, some honourable mentions at the end. And he even says, like, for the lower couple of numbers, you could very easily sub in one of these units at the bottom that didn't make it into the top 10. And he could easily see arguments for why they should be there. So that is the number one thing to remember as we go through this video. It is all just opinions at the end of the day. Everybody rates units in different ways. So the big thing, like I always say, is people have very differing play styles. That's why you always see these arguments about, everyone refers to, like, the APT crowd. I feel like there are two very distinct camps in the Dokkan fan base, which is people who care about big numbers, big damage, and how quickly you can beat an event. And then a lot of people prefer a more slower, methodical, defensive playstyle. And at the end of the day, it means that those two people are probably never going to agree on where a unit should be in a top 10, because a unit like Tech Gohan, for example, if you love defensive play, you're going to love Tech Gohan. If you love APT and you want, to beat an event as quickly as possible by seeing the highest attack stat on turn 1, then you're probably not going to like Tech Gohan. So obviously this is all subjective at the end of the day, but I thought I would just give my thoughts and see what you guys think. So let's go ahead and jump in by talking about these placements. Okay, so let's talk about the 9 and 10 placements. The two Gohans, AGL Kid Gohan at number 10 and Tech Gohan at number 9. I am one of these people that I do like defensive style play sometimes. So I do agree that Tech Gohan probably should still be in the top 10 TURs. Obviously, again, it depends how you rate units, but when it comes to like the most useful TURs in the game, I think he's definitely up there, because whilst there are obviously a bunch of teams that can do this now, Tech Gohan, with how powerful the Hybrid Saiyans team is and the fact that he guards, you can use his team to beat basically every single event in the game, right? Because all you need to do is take him, double Tech Gohan leads, and then take a team of Hybrid Saiyans that largely consist of type advantage against the particular boss that you're fighting, and then you can beat that event, right? He can beat all of the God stages with his team, all of the Super Battle Road stages that his categories can be run on. You can run a double Tech Gohan leads team, things like Rapid Growth, not just Hybrid Saiyans, like all these other stages. So he's very, very good. Like I said earlier as well, if you don't like defensive style play, then maybe you don't think Gohan should still be top 10. But for me personally, just based on how useful he is overall and how well he can perform in harder content, I think everyone's probably seen that clip of him taking like 4 supers or something in slot 1 on Extreme Super Battle Road on one of Truth's videos and still surviving. There's not a lot of units in the game that can do that. So I definitely think he should be in the top 10. And when it comes to AGL Gohan, I think with any top 10 list, as Truth even said himself in part of this video, like the number 10 spot is an easy one that you could change for somebody else, and you probably wouldn't get too many arguments out of me. If you wanted to change number 10 for like Bojack, Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta, Int Broly, the physical Goten and Trunks, like I wouldn't have any issue with that. Obviously, there's a couple of units that are missing from this list that I could have included, but for me personally, I do think those should be higher, so we'll obviously talk about them in a little bit. But in terms of number 9 and 10, I'm not mad about this. For me personally, I think I maybe would put Broly at 10 instead of Gohan. I mean, I do like Gohan. He's a really good unit to run on teams that he's on because of his support. I like running him on Broly's team because he's on Planetary Destruction. But for me, I really enjoy Broly and his playstyle. I put out that video the other day about how I think he's super underrated. So check that out if you haven't seen it. The Rainbow Level 10 Links showcase. I maybe would put him at number 10. But I definitely would not be mad at anyone putting AGL Gohan in their top 10. Although I think 10 is probably as high as I would put him. Okay, so when it comes to the 6, 7 and 8 picks, these are the ones that I feel like were probably the most controversial until we get right to the end. And this is because, as I said at the beginning, this list is not just Dokkan Fest exclusives, and these 3 units are all side banner units that released in the later part of last year. Now, all of these units are really good, and I think you could definitely argue that they are Dokkan Fest level. I would say that they certainly are better than a lot of the Dokkan Fest exclusive that released either during 2021, maybe early 2021, or definitely in 2020 when you look back to some of the Dokkan Fest exclusives from that year. They are definitely better than some of them, or quite a lot of them. But are they better than some units that are not on this list? So this is the number one thing that I saw people saying, is the fact that the 2 GT Super Saiyans that released during Golden Week on both versions at the same time, GT Super Saiyan Goku and Vegeta, are not on this list, which obviously means that in Truth's opinion, these 3 side banner units are all better than the GT Super Saiyans, which a lot of people took issue with. And I will admit, when I first, watched the video, I'd obviously been spoiled. I saw the screenshots on Twitter before I watched the video of people saying, like, oh god, what is this, with the full screenshot showed. So I already saw that they weren't on this list and these units were. So my initial reaction was, I don't understand how this is the case. And then obviously I watched the video, actually listened to what Truth had to say, thought about it a little bit, re-looked at the units myself. And whilst I'm not entirely convinced that I would put all 3 of these units above the GT Super Saiyans, this comes back to what I was saying at the beginning about the fact that, I play global. In terms of 19 and Jiro and Heart Virus Goku, I haven't used them, so I can't really speak to how good they are in comparison to other units. Now, third form Frieza, on the other hand, I rainbowed him before being able to pull my first copy of the LR full power Frieza. Frieza's banner did me dirty. I pulled Goku on like the first multi on his banner, and then had to go like 2,000 stones on Frieza's banner to pull 1 copy of him. So I'd already rainbowed third form Frieza by the time I pulled him. So my third form Frieza is rainbow full level 10 links. I've tried him out on a bunch of different teams, and obviously a lot of people are making the argument that just because of how well he powers up full power Frieza, that's a reason why he should be like high on the list. But I feel like you can say that about a lot of units who aren't necessarily the best, but then they power up other really good units. Because like, for example, Jiro and 20 are on here, or sorry, Jiro and 19 are on here, but they power up one of the units that Truth put right at the top of the list, which is the Dokkan Fest androids. So like, you can factor that in when you rate a unit, but for me personally, if we're going to talk about, like, is this unit better than this other unit, I don't really take into account, like, oh, they make this other unit really, really good, because I'm trying to compare them one-to-one in a vacuum. Now, when it comes to their placements in terms of their order, I would definitely agree again, not having used them, I would agree that Heart Virus Goku should be the lowest of the 3. If we take a look at them here, Heart Virus Goku is a very, very strong defensive unit. Like, he tanks in Pure Saiyan's Extreme Super Battle Road, which is pretty crazy. He is a very strong defensive wall in short events, specifically. He gets a huge amount of extra defense the more HP you have. He also gets damage reduction of 59%, as well as a chance to launch an additional super for the first 5 turns from the start of the turn. So in something like Extreme Super Battle Road, he's perfect for being a defensive wall. Even taking super attacks, he's not going to take a huge amount of damage. He infinitely stacks attack, which is good. Obviously in longer events, he's going to get that decent attack power, although his defense will be going down. He does still get damage reduction past that 5th turn, once you are below 59% HP. So, I mean, he's a very, very good unit, and he has a very solid link set. But again, I feel like he could be divisive in terms of placement in a top 10 list, because he is mainly about defense. And there's a lot of people who just don't care about defense in this game. So then we have the androids. Now, this is the one that I thought was interesting. I actually tweeted at Truth like later that same evening while I was thinking about how to put together this video if I was actually going to do it. And after rereading what these guys do, because they're coming to global very soon, off the top of my head, just reading what they do, I initially had the thought of like, can you really say they're better than third form Frieza when you look at all the stuff that they do? 200% attack, 190% defense. Then when they perform a super, they get an extra, basically 40%, right? Then they buff android allies 40%, which means they also get that as well. So after super attacking, they're almost at 300% attack and defense, and they raise attack and defense on their super attack. So with all of those effects in play, their attack and defense, as soon as they actually attack, are absolutely insane. And then, of course, not only do they not take any damage from Ki Blast super attacks, they actually heal you from Ki Blast super attacks. They recover HP at the start of the turn. I mean, they're just really, really good. Now, one thing you can definitely bring into the equation is the fact that they are very limited, right? They only support androids, so you're really only going to be using them on androids focused teams, right? Like androids, Android Cell Saga or Target Goku, when those teams are very heavily android based. Whereas Frieza is a sworn enemies support unit. So there's a couple of units. Obviously we talked about LR full power Frieza. He makes him absolutely insane, but he actually really is a big boost for STR Kid Buu. I actually watched Truth's video last night of doing Transformation Boost Extreme Super Battle Road and having the starting rotation of Janembu, STR Kid-Buu, and then this guy in slot 3. And then Kid-Buu pushed out like a 6 million attack stat on turn 1, which is pretty crazy. So this guy, very, very good. Now, obviously, start of turn, he only has attack and defense 70%. So if you want to compare these two units, if you were going to put them in slot 1 on turn 1, Frieza is going to take a lot more damage than 19 and 20. Now, with each attack performed, he builds up his attack and defense. You have to do that 10 times. But he has a high chance of launching 2 additional attacks, each of which has a high chance of becoming a super. So even at 55%, he can super attack 3 times in 1 turn. And each super attack raises defense only for 1 turn. And then he does infinitely stack attack. So obviously, if you get multiple supers in the turn, that builds up his defense to being a pretty significant amount. But RNG does play a huge part of this. And again, this is where we come back to people rate units differently. I was always someone who was tentative about calling either of the LRUI Gokus the best unit in the game. Because while 70% dodge is obviously very, very good, if you're somebody who just has a couple of runs in a row where you get really bad RNG, it's really hard to try and call that unit the best unit in the game when they're getting you killed in difficult content. So on a bad RNG turn, like, he might only get 1 super attack, and then you only get 1 defense raise. So in a more difficult piece of content, he's then potentially going to take quite a lot of damage. Whereas the androids, all of their buffs and everything they get just come from attacking that 1 time. So after 1 super attack, their defense massively outclasses the Frieza. So that brings us to the GT Super Saiyans, and to the subject of whether those 3 units are in fact better than them. A lot of people just had the instant knee-jerk reaction that no, they're not. Like, what, are you crazy? But you have to look at, I guess, where their strengths are. So Goku, I think it's universally agreed. I'm sure there's people out there that don't agree, because there always will be. But it's mostly agreed that Goku is not as good as Vegeta unless you're on the GT Heroes team. Because obviously he gets an extra 100% defense as long as there's, both the other allies on the turn of GT Heroes, which he doesn't get if they're not. And so he's only getting the 120 from his passive. So his defense is not terrible by any stretch, because he does raise defense on super attack. But, let's say you're going into Pure Saiyan's Extreme Super Battle Road. Who do you want to put in slot 1? This guy or Heart Virus Goku? So, I mean, I can see arguments being made for this guy not being as good as Heart Virus Goku in certain content. Obviously, on turn 1, he's not going to put up as high an attack stat. The Heart Virus Goku, I mean. This Goku's obviously going to be hitting harder. This Goku has a better leader skill. But, I mean, they both have very good link sets. They're both very good. Super Saiyan Goku units in the game, obviously, are always going to have an advantage. They have good links. They fit on a bunch of good teams. But obviously in harder content, you definitely could make the argument that Heart Virus Goku is better. He's going to tank supers better in shorter content. And even in longer content, if you're below a certain amount of HP and he has that damage reduction, he's just always going to be taking less damage than this Goku. Obviously on a GT Heroes team, this Goku looks a lot better. But he's still not a unit that you can put in slot 1 and just casually tank super attacks. The Vegeta is obviously slightly better. Because he gets a lot of defense on his super attack with the orbs that you pick up. The more orbs you get, the more defense he can get. And he still puts out very respectable attack stats. And then he gets extra attack per GT Heroes ally on the same turn. So Goku can put out higher attack stats than him on certain team builds, but his defense is going to be higher, which again, it kind of comes back to what is your preferred style of play. Now, they are both orb changers, so when we talk about, when we're talking about third form Frieza, one of the reasons why he's so good is because he massively buffs up full power Frieza. Orb changing is not the same as directly being a support unit, obviously, but it does help quite a lot on some of the teams that these guys are on, in order for them to get orbs, especially when you're using a team that has a bunch of LRs. It's very easy to change orbs in such a way that these guys can pick up a ton of orbs for their passive, and then an LR on the same rotation is then very easily be able to get their 18 key super. So they do have a little bit of support utility, if you want to call it that, but obviously nowhere near as much as an actual dedicated support unit. And the fact that these guys are even in discussion to be on a top 10 TUR list, it does show you how crazy this 40% support meta has gotten in the mid to later part of 2021. So Going back to look at the list, like I say, I probably agree with their placement. I would need to play with Gero and 19 a bit more to see whether I really would put them above Frieza. Like I say, I think in a vacuum, just 1 versus 1, not considering the units around them that they support, I would say that I think Gero and 19 are better, but you guys will have to let me know what you think. But in terms of overall top 10 TURs, I feel like there definitely are arguments that you can make that put them above the GT Super Saiyans. But I think personally, if you want to put the GT Super Saiyans on this list, I would probably put them in around the 6 to like 8 mark. So if you want to switch out any of these guys for them, I wouldn't be too mad about that. It just, like I said, really depends how you rate units. Like if you don't care about defense, because like I said, Heart Virus Goku, I don't see how you can argue either of them are better than him defensively. But in terms of offense, they both are, absolutely. So again, it comes back to how you rate units. But the GT Super Saiyans not being on this list was definitely the most controversial thing, I think. If I was going to make this top 10 list, I think probably just for me, I would probably just not put side banner units in just to make it easier on myself. But if you are including all of them, I don't know. I feel like I would put the GT Super Saiyans in the top 10 and maybe knock out Heart Virus Goku and maybe even Frieza. I think maybe put the androids at 8 and then put Frieza. Actually, I don't know. For me personally, I might put the androids at 9 and put Tech Gohan at 8. And then have the GT Super Saiyans at 7 and 6. Okay, so Trunks at number 5. I don't really have much to say about this. I don't really disagree with him being at around this level on this list, based on what I've seen, because again, remember, not a JP player, haven't used him myself, just going by what I've seen from videos from Truth and everybody else talking about him on the 5-9 podcast, all that kind of stuff. I could definitely see him being at around this level in the list. Obviously, he's seemingly much better before transforming and definitely seems very, very good. For me personally, whilst I have no issues with Trunks, I think Trunks is cool. I'm not like a huge Trunks fanboy, so my plan originally was to only really go lightly on his banner and then summon like crazy for the androids, because anyone who knows me knows I love the androids, I love the android team, big Super 17 fan, so, I mean, Trunks is really, really good. I think he deserves to be up around the top half of this kind of list, but I don't really have much else to say about this placement until, obviously, I get a chance to use him myself. And okay, for the final section of the video, we're just going to talk about the top 4, because, well, maybe not number 4. I think there's a lot of room to shuffle these units around. I guess we could still talk about 4. Again, it all comes down to personal preference. If you wanted to put Super Vegeta above Kid Buu, I could probably see an argument for that. But again, this is as somebody who now has actually got to play with Super Vegeta, but has not gotten to play with Kid Buu. I already mentioned the Transformation Buu Super Battle Road video that I watched from Truth last night, and in that video, Kid Buu looked absolutely ridiculous. Double supering and then taking double-digit damage from a super attack on turn 1. I mean, that is not something that Super Vegeta is ever going to do. So again, it kind of depends whether you favour defense or offense. Obviously, Super Vegeta has the advantage of being a Super Saiyan character, so his links and teams and everything are obviously very, very good. He guaranteed crits and guaranteed stuns, so he definitely has uses in hard content like Super Battle Road. And that obviously gives you the wiggle room to do his hidden potential as like full additional, potentially get those double supers. So I definitely would put Super Vegeta very highly on the list. If I was doing a global top 10 TURs, I probably still would have him at number 1. But obviously these top 3 are all units that are not out on global. So if you wanted to shuffle the top 4 around a little bit, I'm probably not going to be too mad about it. But the top 2 is where we get to the next big controversy. Like, people might have been mad about the support units being on here over the GT Super Saiyans, but the top 2 is where the argument gets the most divisive. And I mean, Truth has even said himself, right, if you want to put Goku at 1 and the androids at 2, you're probably not going to argue, right? Now, For me, I know there's a bunch of people, somebody even commented on the tweet about me making this reaction video, that they were hoping that I was going to disagree with Truth and agree with them about putting Goku at number 1 and putting the androids at number 2. Now, for me personally, you probably guessed, because I already mentioned earlier that I'm somebody who appreciates the defensive value of units like Tech Gohan. So for me, I probably would put the androids at number 1. Now, I'm perfectly happy to admit that maybe there is some unconscious bias there, because I do love the android category. You know, Super 17 is a big meme on my channel, part of my channel art, all that kind of stuff. So buffs to the android team are always going to make me very happy. But I tried to, before recording this, really sit and look objectively at the 2 units. And it really just does come down to, again, what I said at the beginning, your preference of play style. If you want to see big attack stats, you just want Goku to come in, especially as a Super Saiyan 3, triple super attack, 7 million attack stats, and just kill everything, then you're going to put Goku at number 1. The androids, one of the reasons why I think they are deserving of the number 1 spot is I think most people would agree that they are better than Goku defensively, not just in terms of their defensive stat, but the fact that obviously they completely negate Ki Blast super attacks, which is pretty ridiculous. And then, of course, they have that Ghost Usher style active skill. So when we look at what they do, they are raising attack and defense for 1 turn. They also seal. So again, in like Super Battle Road, these guys just have so many utility abilities. They seal the enemy super attack. As long as there's 1 or 3 or more enemies, they can use their active skill to Ghost Usher and just completely disable one of the enemy's attacks. Obviously, when there's exactly 2 enemies, it's not as great. But, you know, when there's only 2 enemies, you just kill 1 and then you use it to help finish off the fight. So, since these guys released, JP has released 3 Super Battle Road stages that these guys just absolutely dominate in because of their abilities. They're also an orb changer. They create tech orbs. Now, if you're able to get a large amount of tech orbs, at a minimum of 7, they obviously get an extra 70% attack. This is of any type of orbs, but they get this nuking style passive that is much bigger for tech orbs. So if you can get 7 or more tech orbs, these guys can put out attack stats that are similar to Goku. But of course, that is RNG, and then Goku has built-in additional, so I'm not in any way saying that they do the same amount of damage as him in 1 turn. But in terms of like a singular attack stat, they are able to get up to similar kind of levels whilst having the higher defense and then the ability to just completely ignore key-based super attacks. Now, when you look at Goku, Goku is all about the damage. He does raise defense on super attacks. Obviously, his defense is not bad at all. He starts off with 180 at the start of the turn and then gets another 50 on super attack. He also has a chance to additional built into his passive, and he's a physical unit, so even at level at 55%, he has level 5 additional, so he can triple super in 1 turn. So his defense is definitely no slouch, and his attack stats are going to be very, very good as well. His transformation condition is not the worst. Everybody always trolls Truth about the way he worded his thoughts on the active skill condition, because it is very similar to STR Vegito, but you know, it's not that difficult to get to. 77% or less. The reason why it's annoying is because on a really powerful team, sometimes it's very difficult to lose health. And if a restriction is HP or above, you can always just use an item to heal to then get that effect, whereas you can't really do much about this. Unless you're bringing units that lower your own HP on super attack and stuff like that, which not many people like to do. There aren't that many that are that great, except for, of course, you know, God Chow Man with his Awakening, but they're not on, I think, any teams together. So, but yeah, once he becomes Super Saiyan 3, you could absolutely argue that he's the best TUR in the game, and I would not disagree. I already said this, right? Like, if you want to put Goku at 1 and the androids at 2, like, that's perfectly fine. I can see all the arguments why you would want him to be at number 1. Just for me personally, I do like to prioritize defense. But as the argument always goes, the best defense is a good offense. You don't need to defend against super attacks when the enemy is dead, because you just triple supered for 7 million attack stats. But in something like Super Battle Road, where you've got like 3 or 4 enemies at a time, you know, the androids can Ghost Usher, seal, ignore super attacks, whereas Goku probably immediately blows away at least one of those enemies. But then if one of the surviving ones super attacks him, he's potentially taking a lot of damage. So So when it comes to the top 2, sorry to say for anyone that was hoping I would be disagreeing with Truth, but I definitely think androids are at number 1 and Goku's at number 2. And like I said, Kid Buu, I'm perfectly happy to accept that he's at number 3 based on what I've seen. But if you wanted to put Super Vegeta above him, I probably wouldn't, again, be too mad about it. So there you go. I think if I made my own top 10, which I don't like to do because, like I said, everyone has different opinions. I don't like to rate units that I've not played with. And of course, not being a massive whale, I don't always rainbow units. So when I have a unit that's at, like, say, 3 dupes, level 10 links, and then another Dokkan Fest who's at, like, 55% because I got screwed over on their banner, it's really difficult for me to try and compare them based on my own personal experience, because obviously one of them has 3 more dupes and so is clearly going to have a lot of advantages. But when it comes to this list overall, I don't hugely disagree. I think the inclusion of side banner units probably just made the whole thing a little bit more complicated, but I can definitely see arguments for why those 3 units that are at 6, 7 and 8 are better than a lot of the units who were available. So those are my thoughts on Truth's top 10. Sorry if you were expecting this to be some sort of me like ripping into this and being like, oh, he's an idiot, these choices are so bad, because I don't really largely disagree with a huge amount of this. But I'm interested to know your guys' thoughts. I think it's always fun to discuss like unit placements and rankings and stuff as long as you're civil about it, and you know, you just need to accept that people have different metrics for how they rate units, and that may be different to how you rate units, but there's no reason we can't all discuss it in a civil matter. And I'm interested to know what you guys think down below. And Truth, let me know what you thought about my thoughts on, well, your thoughts. So there you go. That is going to be it for the video, guys. This has been the Masked Ninja again. Smash that like button, subscribe to the channel if you are new. Check out the links down below for the Discord and the merch store, and I will see you all again soon. Have a good one.